that poverty, lack, and insufficiency thrives more in the absence of vision. Vision. What has brought Africa to where it is today is vision deficit, prophetic deficit.
Greetings family, welcome to another video whereby we will be learning from our man of God on economic witchcraft. Do not forget to subscribe. God bless and shalom.
In your misery, you don't want to be part of the people who are making it hard for yourself. So we are going to look at indicators. We are going to look at signs that serves as proof that you have been bewitched. What to look out for, just so that you know that you are a victim of this economic witchcraft. What are those? Maybe today I may give you just 4. There must be indicators, pointers, things that when you look at them, you know, I am a victim of economic witchcraft. You know the problem that we see in the Bible? There is a problem in their solutions. In the Bible, there are problems in their solutions in the Bible. And it's most likely that every problem that you're going to encounter, somebody has once encountered it. And then, if that's somebody who once encountered the problem that you are currently encountering, got victory over that problem, you must look at it. How did he get the victory over such a similar problem that you are currently faced with? Now, before I give you the first one, there is a man again in the Bible who was the king of Egypt, Pharaoh. This man was never as prayerful as some of you are. And yet he gives a very vivid description of his spiritual experience at the river in the book of Genesis, chapter 41. I want you to look at that, Genesis 41.
Yes, Father.
Verse number 1.
Verse number 1. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river.
And it came to pass at the end of the 2 full years.
Yes.
That who?
Pharaoh dreamed.
He had a dream.
And behold, he stood by the river.
Now, I would want people to really look at something here. I may not have enough time to touch on the river aspect. It is important that you don't only look at what Pharaoh is looking at. It is equally important that you consider where he was made to stand. You see, places are very important, and not just what is being seen by the dreamer. The mention of the river there is very critical. Very critical. Because it deals with something to do with the flow. But I'll come back and teach on that, the importance of a river, not just to what he then saw. He was made to stand at a river, and then something came out of the river that you wouldn't expect to come out of the river.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, Father.
7 kinds that came out of that river.
Yes, Father.
You can read it.
And behold, there came up out of the river.
Came up out. Came up out. So whilst Pharaoh was standing at the river, he saw something that came up first from the water and then out. Then that thing went to the riverbanks and started feeding. You can read it.
There came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine.
They were well-favored kine.
And fat-fleshed.
Fat-fleshed. Yes.
And they fed in a meadow.
Yes. So from the river, they went on to feed. Now, notice that they are not fed because they were feeding on the meadow. When they came out of the water, you wouldn't expect cattle to come out of the water, come out of the river. But when they came up and out, they were fed already.
Yes.
Now they went on to feed. Not so that they become fat. They went on to feed so that they would maintain their stature. Meaning wherever these kinds are coming from, they were feeding. They had a way of maintaining their lives wherever they are coming from. They are not starting to eat here. Wherever they are coming from, they've been feeding on something. So what they're doing here is only to continue with their lifestyle. Okay? So they are feeding. And then he kept on looking.
And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river.
After them, out of the same river.
Ill-favored and lean-fleshed.
Lean-fleshed.
And stood by the other kine.
These ones, they came out and they stood by the other kine. Yes.
Upon the brink of the river.
Now look at what they did. These thin kine.
Stood by the other kine.
The other kine that were feeding on the meadows, right?
Yes, Father.
Now these ones that are thin, poor, broke, stood by the ones feeding.
And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine.
They fed on the 7 well-favored kine. They did not eat the grass, nor the leaves. These are kine that are feeding on flesh instead of the vegetation. They are feeding on meat. They have a wrong diet. You have to follow this. You have to follow this. They are eating, but they are eating the wrong thing. So you can tell what made them to become what they are. What we have seen them do at the bank of the river is exactly what they used to do wherever they are coming from. The fat are fat because they are feeding on the right stuff. The thin are thin because they are feeding on the wrong stuff. The rich are eating right. And the poor sometimes are poor because they're trying to feed on the rich. What the rich are spending most of their time doing is not what the poor are spending most of their time doing. The poor are not feeding on what the rich are feeding on. The rich, the well-favored kind, were focusing on the right diet, and the poor were focusing on the rich. Now, I want you to keep on reading now. We want to see something there that is happening.
Verse 5. And he slept and dreamed the second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good.
And it devoured again. The same thing happened.
Yes.
I don't want to spend much time on that because that's not what I'm here to teach on. But I want people to understand that poverty, lack, and insufficiency thrives more in the absence of vision. Vision. What has brought Africa to where it is today is vision deficit, prophetic deficit. We lack focus. We lack focus. In the absence of a financial vision, poverty thrives. There is need that you have leadership that specializes in dreams and visions. And then a department that deals with the interpretation of those visions and dreams. Then you have a stable economy. Because famine must be perceivable. There must be a gifted person among us who can run to and fro into the future and pre-live for us upcoming events. See on our behalf. That's the responsibility of a watchman. A watchman must be given an advantaged place where he is placed far above everyone else. The most elevated place in this society must be given to a watchman. That most elevated position, you must never have the king of Israel sitting there. that position is never for judges. That position is for the watcher. And then that person, his duty is to then blow the trumpet in case there is an enemy approaching. It is not the work of the king or the president to be watching over the city. The leader must rely on the watcher, the man who sees beyond. And there must be a supporting structure, a position, an elevated place created for the watcher, so that from there he can see what is yet to come. I want our people to understand this. It matters where you place your watcher. If you say that's the highest position, I want to sit there myself, you have a problem in the city.
Wow.
Pharaoh was prophetic, but his dream needed an interpreter. Now magicians were called to come and interpret the dream. They failed. Even witches were invited. They failed. Until the butler and say to the king, now I remember there was a man. He once had dreams. And then he interpreted our dreams whilst we were in prison. That man is gifted in the area of interpretation of dreams. Call him. Let him try. I'm sure, King, you're going to have an interpretation today. And immediately Joseph was invited to come. Then he gave the interpretation to the king. And then he told the king that don't look at how many dreams that you've had. It's just one dream. And the reason why the dream was doubled, it is because this thing is from the Lord, and God will hasten to fulfill it. God will be so quick to bring this thing to pass. There's going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of drought, scarcity, poverty. And the 7 years of lack shall be so great that even the 7 years of plenty shall be forgotten. It's going to be terrible. So what do I do? And Joseph said, find a man who is discreet and wise. That was his recommendation. Appoint a discreet man who is also wise. Discreet means an ability to discern. Don't do that yourself, king. Find, appoint. So in other words, kings must understand, or especially presidents must understand, that they are appointed to appoint. Their responsibility is not always to do everything by themselves. Their responsibility is for them to identify people with responsibilities. O king, find a man who is discreet and wise, and appoint him let him be in charge. And it was so strategic. I'll have to come back and show you how that was implemented, how that advice was implemented.
Yes,
I think maybe next time.
yes, please.
Because there you are going to see solutions that we need, even in Africa.
Wow.
In that chapter, from beginning to end, I will show you how easily we can correct our economies in Africa. Right there in your Bible. I'll explain that to you.